Again, Big U, his son, Baby Huey, or Big Huey, right? He was assassinated last night on Halloween out there in LA.
The streets of Los Angeles went into absolute chaos after Big U's son, Jabari Baby Henley, was gunned down on Halloween night. But what came after his death sent shockwaves way beyond the city limits. It set off one of the most explosive street feuds LA has seen in years. NSBE's affiliates wasted no time taunting Big U's loss online, throwing jabs, posting memes, and reigniting old neighborhood beefs that had been simmering since 2019. This wasn't just another street hit. This was a declaration of war that had everyone from Crenshaw to Compton watching their backs. Halloween night in South Central. The air was supposed to be filled with laughter, candy bags, and neighborhood block parties winding down. But instead, the city turned cold. Sirens replaced music, flashing lights painted the streets red and blue, and the name Jabari Henley became the headline of the night. What should have been a peaceful evening turned into a nightmare that nobody saw coming. By 11:11 p.m., LAPD's 77th Street Division got the call. Shots fired near South Figueroa and West 69th Street. When officers arrived, they found chaos and confusion, but locals already knew. Something major had just gone down. Word spread like wildfire across South LA. From the Vermont Slauson corridor to Hyde Park, everybody was saying the same thing. They got Baby Y. And that one sentence carried the weight of a city's pain and a gangland's fury. Now, if you know that area, you know it's been a powder keg for years. The blocks stay active, tensions never cool off, and history runs deep. The shooting happened right by a little smoke shop called Fig and 69 Smoke Spot.
And I want to talk about, Big U. His son was assassinated last night out there in LA. Absolutely nasty work, man. Again, Big U, his son, Baby Huey, or Big Huey, right? He was assassinated last night on Halloween out there in LA.
A regular hangout surrounded by liquor stores, auto shops, and old empty lots that tell stories of the wars fought long before this one. For decades, this corner has belonged to the Rollin' 60s neighborhood Crips. And whether you're affiliated or not, that territory comes with history, eyes watching, and rules you can't break. Sources say the shop itself wasn't gang-affiliated, just caught in the middle of a neighborhood where peace doesn't last long. But what went down that night looked like something straight out of a movie scene. Only this time, the bullets were real, and the fear was heavy in the air. Witnesses, including two people leaving the shop and a nearby food truck vendor, described the moment everything flipped. A dark sedan, maybe a Toyota Camry or Honda Accord, rolled up slow, headlights dimmed. Jabari, standing tall at 6'1", around 210 pounds, walked over to the car from the sidewalk, casually talking through the passenger window. It seemed like a quick chat, maybe even someone he knew. But then, out of nowhere, chaos erupted. In just seconds, the sound of gunfire exploded through the block. Pop, pop, pop. That sharp, soul-freezing noise that makes every head duck and every heart stop. In that instant, the night of Halloween joy turned into a crime scene soaked in pain and disbelief. And just like that, South Central's most infamous streets had a new headline.
I mean, it is what it is as far as this is how the streets go, but Baby Huey, I ain't gonna hold you. Solid dude. Like, as young as he was, if you actually met him, he actually seemed way older. Kid was solid, like straight, solid dude. Now some of y'all be, well, he was in the street. He didn't operate like that. He wasn't operating out here like no goofy. Let me just flat out put that out there.
One that would spark whispers, accusations, and an online frenzy that the culture wasn't ready for. This wasn't just about revenge or street politics anymore. This was personal, and the city knew it. The details of this shooting are nothing short of terrifying. Investigators said the killers fired off at least 7 rounds, and judging by the shell casings left scattered on the pavement, they were dealing with serious firepower, either a 9mm or .40 caliber semi-automatic. Whoever pulled that trigger knew exactly what they were doing, and they wanted to make sure Jabari didn't walk away from that corner alive. Jabari took 4 direct hits, 2 tearing through his torso, 1 ripping into his upper chest, and another striking deep in his stomach. A 5th bullet tore through his left arm, and 1 more grazed his thigh before he collapsed right by the shop's entrance. He fell hard, clutching his side, as that dark sedan screeched off into the night, heading north on Figueroa, turning right on the 68th, and vanishing into the shadows like a ghost. The sound of tires burning out was the last thing anyone heard before the chaos fell silent. Within minutes, paramedics from LAFD Station 46 came rushing in at 11:14 p.m., lights flashing, sirens screaming. But sometimes even speed can't beat fate. When they found Jabari, he was barely hanging on, struggling to breathe, body trembling, gasping for air in that last fight for life. The medics jumped into action, hitting him with chest compressions, oxygen, and an IV packed with epinephrine, trying everything in their playbook to bring him back. But time wasn't on their side. By 11:28 p.m., just 14 minutes after they arrived, the fight was over. Jabari "Baby Y" Henley was pronounced gone. The paramedics tried to keep it together, but even hardened first responders felt the weight of that loss. Another young man from South LA gone too soon. And this one hit especially close to home because of who he was. The Los Angeles County Coroner's Office took over the next morning, filing the case as 2025-004512. The autopsy revealed the brutal truth. Multiple gunshot wounds, severe internal bleeding, and a torn left pulmonary artery. The kind of injury that gives you almost no chance of survival. Official cause of death, homicide. And when the toxicology came back, clean. No liquor, no drugs, nothing. Jabari wasn't high, wasn't reckless, wasn't caught slipping. He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, facing the kind of violence he'd been trying to avoid his whole life. But to understand why this hit shook LA so deeply, you gotta know who Jabari was. Not just Big U's son, but a man trying to live his own story. Born March 15, 1991 in Inglewood, Jabari didn't chase fame like his father. He wasn't trying to be a celebrity, a rapper, or a public figure. He was just trying to build something real for himself and his family. Those close to him said he kept it low-key, stayed respectful, and never moved like he had something to prove. Still, music was in his blood. Under the name Baby Y, he dropped a few solid tracks that reflected real South LA life. Loyalty, survival, and brotherhood. His 2019 single Hood, featuring Hoodrich Pablo Juan and produced by Kenny Beats, pulled in over 150,000 streams on Spotify. Not crazy numbers, but enough to earn him quiet respect from local listeners. His lyrics hit hard, talking about staying solid through struggle, and they hit even harder now, knowing how his life ended. But music wasn't his main hustle. According to his homies, Jabari was working as a warehouse supervisor in Compton, stacking honest money, looking after his 10-year-old daughter, and doing everything he could to stay out of the street drama that came with his last name. He made it clear, he wasn't trying to live that life. He stayed out the way, one of his close friends said. And that's heavy talk in South LA.
Homie, they killed Nip too. Let's not forget, homie. They killed Nipsey Hussle. Eric Holder was not a lone actor in that. If you go back and follow the details, Nip and Big U got into it. Big U hit Nip Daddy across the head with a bat. His brother had to come out and shoot the gun. Hey, y'all get off. Say, Nip, come on, we finna come beat you. Because I don't want to pay that $20,000.
Meaning he kept his head down, stayed respectful, and avoided unnecessary problems. That's what makes this loss cut so deep. Jabari wasn't out here chasing trouble. He was escaping it. He was one of those rare few trying to build a future beyond the beef, beyond the politics, beyond the cycle that's taken too many lives before his. Those who grew up with him described him as loyal, calm, and humble. The kind of guy who gave advice instead of attitude, who'd rather work overtime than waste time. Jabari leaves behind 3 siblings, all carving their own paths, proof that even in the midst of pain, Big U's legacy lives on through his children. But now, the streets that once raised him were echoing with one question: who did this? And why? Because the whispers starting to spread after his death weren't random. They hinted at something much darker brewing behind the scenes, something that was about to turn LA's underground politics upside down. Jabari's death hit his family like a wrecking ball. His brother Jabari Henley, only 28 years old and a starting linebacker for the LA Chargers, took to Instagram on November 1st with a post that shattered hearts everywhere.
All this is nonsense. Me and Big U even had a conversation about it. And I said, man, I'm sorry you're getting dragged into this fake storyline. Not that I have anything to do with it, because I've never interviewed Loose Cannon or anything else like that. But I just as someone I'm cool with, I said, I'm sorry that this is the story that's going out and people are running with it, because I remember every conversation I've ever had with Big U, he's always spoken positively about Nipsey. Every time. Our interview, nothing negative about Nipsey. Personal conversations, nothing negative about Nipsey, ever.
My heart is shattered. Rest easy, bro. We got the fam. You could feel the pain in every word. Then came Michael Henley, 32, a respected barber running his own chair out in Hawthorne, and Shay Henley, 30, working as a nurse in Long Beach. Each of them building their own lives, trying to rise above the chaos that always seemed to haunt the family name. They were all moving forward, staying positive, trying to build legacies separate from the streets. But that night pulled them right back into the shadows their father had been fighting for decades to escape. Now here's where the heartbreak cuts even deeper, where Big U was when he got the news. Eugene Big U Henley, 58 years old, one of South LA's most known figures, found out his son had been murdered while he was locked up inside the Metropolitan Detention Center in downtown Los Angeles. He's been sitting there without bail since March 2025, after the feds dropped a 43-count Rico indictment that hit like a thunderstorm. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Central District of California accused Big U of running what they described as a mafia-style enterprise tied to the Rollin' 60s Crips. The charges included everything from extortion and bank fraud to human trafficking and even allegedly ordering a hit on a Vegas rapper. The streets were already talking about that case heavy, but nothing could prepare Big U for the moment he heard that his own son had been taken from him. And how he found out was colder than anything imaginable. Around 1:30 a.m. on November 1st, while the prison was on lockdown, Big U's co-defendant, Loose Cannon, a well-known music executive, got a text through a contraband phone from someone on the outside. It was the news no father should ever have to hear. In the dark silence of the cell block, Cannon had to whisper it to him between bunks. "They got your boy." Later, Loose Cannon described the moment to TMZ and Hot New Hip Hop, and his words painted a brutal picture. He said Big U just froze, didn't say a word at first, tears streaming, fists clenched. Then he whispered, "Not my boy, not like this." Those 6 words hit harder than any headline ever could. A father, one known for being stoic, powerful, feared, completely broken, trapped behind bars, unable to even hold his child one last time. Cannon said the two just sat there in silence, tears falling in the dark.
I feel like they had whatever differences they had when Nip was alive and they got over that shit. I've been around for a minute, so I don't feel like that even carried on to, you know what I mean? Like, that's a crazy, just imagine you raising this young dude, y'all fall out about some business stuff.
"We're both shattered," Cannon told reporters later. "Heartbroken and devastated doesn't cover it. We'll work through this together, even from in here. God makes no mistakes. He's testing us, but we'll rise." You could tell he was trying to find some kind of peace, some spiritual meaning in something that made no sense at all. As of November 2nd, 2025, the case was still wide open. No arrests, no suspects officially named. The LAPD South Bureau Homicide Division was working overtime, pulling surveillance footage from 12 different nearby businesses, trying to piece together that dark sedan's trail. The city put up a $50,000 reward through the LAPD Crime Reward Program, hoping someone, anyone, would step forward. But in the streets, silence still ruled. And online, things were spiraling fast, because just when you thought grief would bring people together, the internet did what it does best, turned tragedy into chaos. Less than 2 hours after the first police scanner alerts dropped around 11:45 p.m., social media started exploding. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Reddit. Everyone was talking about the Jabari Henley shooting, and it didn't take long before the comments section turned into a war zone. What should have been condolences and calls for justice turned into a toxic digital circus. Troll accounts popped up instantly, spreading rumors about who was behind the shooting. Conspiracy theories ran wild, people claiming it was street revenge, an industry hit, even linking it to old Nipsey Hussle conspiracies. Some even said it was karma from Big U's Rico case, while others accused rivals of mocking his pain. And through it all, instead of empathy, the internet chose chaos. Clout chasers started posting edited videos, fake screenshots, even old clips from Nipsey's era trying to connect dots that didn't exist. Within hours, Big U and Baby Y were trending globally, not for the right reasons, but for speculation, drama, and lies.
The person who killed Nipsey Hussle has been convicted of the murder. Big U's name never came up in the trial.
Not a call log, not a
nothing. Not a nothing. You would think that in a case this serious where you're facing life in prison, if it really was a murder for hire, like people are trying to say it is, which is nonsense, that person would probably come forward to try to get their time reduced.
Meanwhile, the Henley family stayed silent. No statements, no interviews, Just quiet mourning while the world dissected their pain in real time. The same streets Big U once protected were now whispering about betrayal, setups, and old enemies resurfacing. And online, the disrespect was getting vile. Some NSBE affiliates, known rivals, started dropping cryptic emojis and dark jokes, using coded captions that only locals understood. It was like they were throwing gasoline on an already raging fire. That's when everyone realized this wasn't just another LA tragedy. This was about to reignite the same kind of storm that shook the city when Nipsey died. Except this time, it was personal on every level: family, power, and respect. The lines between grief and revenge were blurring, and everyone knew something dangerous was coming next. What we saw after Jabari's death wasn't grief. It was something dark, something twisted. Within hours, social media turned into a feeding frenzy where people weren't mourning a young father. They were celebrating his death, talking about karma, divine payback, and the universe getting even. All because of the long-standing rumors tied to his father, Big U. It was pure chaos, a cruel digital circus. Within just 90 minutes of the first police scanner alerts dropping, the story exploded online. And instead of focusing on the loss, the internet dragged it straight into the 6-year-old conspiracy theories about Nipsey Hussle's 2019 murder. Theories that falsely tied Big U to the tragedy. On X, what used to be Twitter, posts about Big U's son jumped from 2,500 mentions around midnight to over 80,000 by sunrise on November 1st. Hashtags like Karma, Big Henley, and Baby Y were flooding feeds across LA and beyond. The speed was unreal.
When Nipsey died, right? When Nipsey got killed, we probably had about 300, 375, 400 kids that was in our program. And I had the travel basketball team. We had a contract with Adidas that was worth about $3 million that Kanye West gave us.
Wow.
And then I had like a bunch of other different contracts. And for a nonprofit, we were really thriving. Then Nipsey gets killed. Well, after Nipsey get killed, then the rumor goes out, Big U had something to do. We lost everything.
You lost all those?
And when I tell you everything.
Wow.
Kanye stopped answering the phone. Adidas stopped answering the phone. And I ended up almost going dead broke because we already committed to this team.
Proof that social media doesn't wait for facts. It just feeds off chaos. TikTok went wild with it too. Dozens of accounts started dropping videos within hours, including some graphic footage showing paramedics performing CPR on Jabari that got posted by anonymous users. That clip alone hit 3.2 million views by noon the next day. The comments section turned into a digital battlefield, half praying for peace, the other half calling it justice from the streets. Meanwhile, Instagram was spinning into madness. Fan pages dedicated to Nipsey Hussle started posting emotional montages. Clips, mourning Nipsey, mixed with slick captions that pointed fingers straight at Big U. By mid-afternoon, those reels had racked up 25 million views worldwide. The algorithm was eating it alive, pushing tragedy as entertainment, turning grief into trending content. And the ugliest part? Most of the disrespect came disguised as spiritual talk. People saying things like, "The streets always balance the scales," or "Nipsey's spirit don't miss." But anyone paying attention could see what was really happening. Years of unresolved beef and false rumors getting recycled and repackaged for clicks. These online karma theories came straight from the same baseless claims that have followed Big U since 2019. The ones suggesting he somehow vouched for Eric Holder Jr., the man convicted in 2022 for Nipsey's murder, or that Big U profited off Nipsey's legacy through his unique music label. But those claims were completely debunked. Big U's name never once appeared in the trial transcripts, never mentioned by prosecutors or witnesses. Still, facts don't go viral, lies do. And just like that, those old conspiracy videos were resurrected. Clips from Charleston White's 2021 interview resurfaced overnight, where he made wild claims about Big U and Nipsey's falling out. That post alone pulled 11,000 likes and nearly 500 reposts in under 24 hours. Charleston's words, full of shock value and chaos, got recycled like brand new ammo in the comment wars. Then came Loose Cannon's old podcast rant, the same Loose Cannon who later broke the news of Jabari's death to Big U behind bars. That episode, recorded before his Rico arrest, got reposted across every platform. Cannon had claimed that Big U signed Nip to a shady deal and then let the snakes circle. The irony wasn't lost on fans. The same man who once questioned Big U's loyalty now had to look him in the eyes and tell him his son was gone. Not long after, Brick Baby, one of the few who's actually from that world, called out the nonsense, saying on record that these stories were all cap. He made it clear that none of these dudes had real facts, just recycled drama. His interview barely got traction though, because truth doesn't trend the way chaos does. Then another clip caught fire, a Whack 100 Instagram Live from March 2025, where he claimed there was a physical altercation between Big U and Nipsey back in 2017, supposedly leading to Nip's brother Black Sam being arrested. That old live blew up again, generating a thread with over 50,000 engagements in a few hours. It was like the internet had been waiting years to reopen this wound. And Jabari's tragedy was the spark that reignited it all. The worst part? Nobody stopped to think about his daughter, his siblings, or the fact that a family was mourning. Instead, the public fed off pain like it was entertainment, twisting real loss into digital theater. The whole thing exposed just how toxic the online culture has become, where a family's nightmare becomes a hashtag, and unproven conspiracies get treated like gospel. Every share, every comment, every repost only added more noise, drowning out what really mattered. A young father lost his life in cold blood, and his family was left to pick up the pieces while the world argued over lies. And behind the scenes, that digital storm was starting to bleed into real life, with sets, street figures, and industry insiders all reacting in their own ways. Some calling for peace, others whispering about revenge, because when you mix grief, history, and street politics, it never just stays online for long. These weren't new revelations. This was old dirt getting dug back up, twisted into fresh clickbait by people who never cared about the truth in the first place. The same recycled rumors from years ago were now dressed up as breaking news, all because the algorithm loves chaos. The way folks moved online in those first few hours after Jabari's murder showed just how sick the internet can get when pain becomes profit and tragedy turns into entertainment. By 12:07 a.m. on November 1st, the first disrespectful post hit the timeline. A grainy video from the crime scene captioned, "Retaliation for Big U's alleged Nipsey setup. Street war never ends." That post didn't even try to hide the mockery. It got 19 likes and 5 reposts within minutes, spreading poison before the police even cleared the scene. Then at 1:46 a.m., a different tone appeared. Someone trying to make sense of the madness under the CPR clip, writing, "Comments full of Nipsey's spirit and sins of the father. We've lost compassion. Death is entertainment." That one hit home and got 95 likes, showing that at least a few people still had empathy left. But the compassion didn't last long. By 6:47 a.m., the timeline had turned straight venomous. A post popped up saying, "LA let Big U walk after killing your legend Nipsey. Trash city." That disgusting line racked up 2,400 likes in just a few hours. By midday, things got even wilder. Someone dropped a YouTube video titled, "Proof Big U Killed Nipsey and Son's Best Friend." And that mess pulled in over 417,000 views in just the first few hours. When you actually break down the numbers, the size of this digital mob is insane. Analysts reviewing roughly 8,000 posts made between midnight and 2 a.m. found that 62% invoked Nipsey in some way. Hashtags like Nas Nipsey Karma, Do Nipsey, and Justice from the Grave were plastered everywhere, showing up more than 4,000 times. Only 28% of posts offered neutral condolences, and a weak 10% had the courage to condemn the mockery. That means almost 2/3 of the internet was feeding into hate, not healing. Eventually, the platforms had to step in, but the damage was already done. X, formerly Twitter, suspended 15 accounts for doxing people connected to the Henley family. TikTok demonetized over 200 videos for showing graphic footage, and Instagram flagged 50 reels under its hate speech policy. But none of that erased the disrespect that had already spread across millions of screens. This whole digital circus was proof that the culture's moral compass is spinning out of control. Somewhere along the line, grief turned into gossip, justice turned into hashtags, and karma became a buzzword for cruelty. There was zero evidence connecting Jabari's murder to anything that happened back in 2019. None. But people didn't care about proof. They cared about drama. What really drove this storm wasn't facts, it was hurt. The Nipsey Hussle tragedy left a wound so deep that parts of the community still haven't healed. And for some people, blaming Big U became their way of processing the pain. In their eyes, Jabari's murder wasn't just random. It was cosmic payback. A twisted idea that the streets or the universe were somehow settling an old score. That's not spirituality, that's trauma wearing a halo. But not everyone was with that energy. There were still voices trying to calm the storm and bring back a little humanity. People close to Nipsey's estate wanted nothing to do with the hate being spread. Black Sam, Nipsey's brother, posted through All Money in Ray Records Instagram on November 1st, writing, "Pain multiplies pain. Honor Nip with peace, not this." That post hit deep, and for a moment, it felt like someone finally said what needed to be said. A few figures in the hip-hop world also spoke up, calling out what they saw as a disturbing collapse in empathy. They reminded fans that two things could be true. You can mourn Nipsey and respect the fact that another man just lost his son. They called out the hypocrisy of people preaching loyalty while cheering on a family's pain. Those who actually knew Big U, people who've shared history, community, and real-life moments with him, came forward to defend him, reminding everyone that he's a father first, not just a street legend or a name tied to a rumor. They said what many were too afraid to. The internet was weaponizing grief against a man who couldn't even defend himself from behind bars. And that's the scariest part. How quickly the internet can strip away someone's humanity, turning their lowest moment into content. Jabari's death wasn't treated like the loss of a son, a brother, or a father. It became another viral headline in a cycle that refuses to stop spinning. The message from those who still have heart was simple. We've lost the meaning of compassion. And if this is what justice looks like now, the culture's in trouble. Here's the part that too many people keep skipping over. The facts. The reality is simple. Eric Holder Jr., the man who was actually convicted of killing Nipsey Hussle, was sentenced to 60 years to life back in 2022. And through that entire trial, every transcript, every testimony, every call log, Big U's name never came up once. Not in the witness stand, not in any phone record, not even in passing, nothing. The rumors floating around online had zero foundation in the official case files. As one commentator perfectly put it during a segment breaking down the conspiracy theories, if there had been even a shred of evidence linking Big U to a murder-for-hire plot, the prosecutors would have blasted it across that courtroom. That trial was one of the most high-profile murder cases in modern hip-hop history. And trust, if there was something to expose, the state wouldn't have held back. But the digital world doesn't care about truth. It cares about engagement. The more conflict, the more clicks. And that online chaos didn't just stay on screens. It bled into real life. LAPD reported a 22% spike in anonymous Crime Stoppers tips in the days following Jabari's killing, around 150 calls between November 1st and 2nd alone, with many referencing old beefs or Nipsey connections. The backlash had spiraled into something bigger, a vicious cycle where Nipsey's grief was being weaponized against a totally unrelated tragedy. That's what made this moment so disturbing. A community still trying to heal from 2019's heartbreak was now ripping itself open again. Instead of focusing on catching the killers who took a young father's life, the internet was obsessed with a 6-year-old narrative that had already been proven false. The whole mission, getting justice for Jabari Henley, was being buried under gossip and recycled hate. To really understand how we got here, we've got to rewind the clock, back before the headlines, before the conspiracies, to the real story of Big U and Nipsey Hussle. Because beneath all the internet noise, their relationship wasn't some Hollywood-style rivalry. It was complicated, layered, and rooted in a shared mission to uplift South Central when few others cared. Let's take it back to the mid-2000s. Big U had just come home after doing a long stretch behind bars. Released on parole in 2004, he came out determined to use his name and influence for something different. That's when he founded the Community Intervention Alliance, CIA, in 2005. An organization focused on brokering peace talks between Crips and Bloods in some of LA's most volatile neighborhoods. It was around this time that a young Nipsey Hussle, barely in his early 20s and representing the rollin' 60s, began showing up at those informal meetings in Crenshaw. Big U saw something special in him, a calm, driven presence that stood out from the noise. He once described Nipsey as a next-gen leader, someone who could bridge the gap between the old-school OGs and the younger generation still navigating the streets. By February 2009, their working relationship became official. Nipsey inked a 10-year management deal with Big U's unique music label, often referred to as Monique Music in the paperwork, giving Big U a 10% management fee and 25% publishing share. Those terms were standard at the time, especially for an artist still climbing his way up. But years later, in 2023, online critics and fans, armed with hindsight and social media outrage, labeled the contract predatory. Petition even started circulating, demanding Nipsey's estate reclaim control of his early catalog. But what most people don't realize is that during that era, Big U and Nipsey were locked in. They were making genuine moves that went beyond music. They weren't just chasing hits. They were building a blueprint for change in their community. In 2010, the two co-hosted a massive event called Unity in the Community at Leimert Park, which drew nearly 800 people, gang members, families, activists, all standing side by side under one message: peace. Big U played mediator between rival sets like the Rollin' 60s and the Hoovers, while Nipsey performed live to close out the event. That day wasn't about fame. It was about survival and solidarity, and it didn't stop there. In 2012, both men personally contributed $5,000 each to support CIA's youth mentorship and re-entry programs. They invested their own money, not sponsorship cash, not industry grants, their own pockets. In an interview with XXL magazine, Nipsey said, "U Bridges sets saved lives on my block." Meanwhile, Big U told reporters, "He made the music. I helped him move safe through the politics." That dynamic, one in the studio, one in the streets, was what made them such a powerful duo. But of course, like most strong partnerships in hip-hop, fame, money, and outside pressure started shifting the energy. By the mid-2010s, when Nipsey's career began skyrocketing, quiet tensions started brewing about contracts, control, and credit. Yet, those cracks got exaggerated online into a full-blown feud that never really existed in the way people imagine. That's the sad truth of how stories mutate. What started as a real partnership with real community impact eventually became internet mythology, reshaped by outsiders who needed a villain for their narrative. But the receipts tell a different story. Big U helped shape Nipsey's early journey, and Nipsey used his platform to expand their shared message of empowerment. It was never about betrayal. It was about evolution. Still, when tragedy struck in 2019, those old memories turned into weapons. Instead of remembering the peace rallies and charity work, people remembered gossip. And years later, when Jabari was killed, all that buried tension came rushing back to the surface. The truth is, Big U and Nipsey's history isn't one of enemies. It's a complex legacy of mentorship, street unity, and brotherhood that the internet keeps twisting for clicks. And now, with both of them caught in different forms of tragedy, one murdered, one incarcerated, and one family torn apart, the cycle of pain keeps spinning. Fueled by misinformation the world refuses to let die. That era, between 2016 and 2018, marked the peak of what Big U and Nipsey were building together. Their partnership was in full stride, solid, and rooted in something way bigger than music. Through the Block by Block series, they hosted panels tackling gentrification, economic displacement, and how to rebuild black neighborhoods from the ground up. These events brought out over 4,000 people in total, from local politicians to street legends, all coming together to talk solutions, not violence. And behind the scenes, Big U wasn't just a mentor. He was a major creative influence too. He gave A&R input on Nipsey's Grammy-nominated masterpiece Victory Lap, helping to fine-tune the sound and even connecting Kendrick Lamar for key collaborations. In 2018, Nipsey gave back in a huge way. He donated $100,000 to the Community Intervention Alliance, CIA, Big U's nonprofit, to expand youth programs, job training, and re-entry initiatives for formerly incarcerated men. It was a clear sign of unity between two generations. Proof that despite their different paths, they shared one vision: rebuilding South Central from the inside out. But as Nipsey's fame skyrocketed and his empire grew, the Marathon clothing store, his real estate investments, his record label, subtle tension began bubbling under the surface. By late 2018, whispers started spreading that Nipsey was looking to exit his management deal with Big U's unique music imprint. The word was that he wanted full creative control, not out of disrespect, but out of evolution. He wanted to own everything tied to his name, from his masters to his brand. When the Marathon clothing store officially launched in August 2018, the streets saw it as a historic moment. A black-owned business planted right in Crenshaw, employing locals and giving back to the block. Big U showed up to support, stood front and center, and even posed for photos. But a few hours later, he posted something cryptic on X, Twitter, that had everyone talking. Loyalty tests all. Nobody knew what he meant at the time. But months later, that post would take on a darker meaning when tragedy struck. Photos that later surfaced showing Eric Holder Jr., Nipsey's eventual killer, at that same store opening alongside. Big U sent the internet into a frenzy after Nipsey's death. People twisted the image, turning coincidence into conspiracy. Suddenly, old photos became evidence, and coded captions became proof. It was a cruel distortion of reality, and it would haunt Big U for years to come. When Nipsey was murdered on March 31st, 2019, Big U's reaction was immediate and deeply public. Just 2 days later, on April 2nd, he helped organize the massive Unity March in Crenshaw that drew over 5,000 people, Bloods and Crips walking side by side under the same flag of peace. It was one of the most powerful moments in LA history, a temporary ceasefire inspired by loss but driven by hope. Big U also took the stage during Nipsey's memorial service, delivering an emotional speech where he called Nipsey, "my son in spirit." He poured his heart out, speaking about mentorship, redemption, and how Nip's legacy would live forever. Behind the scenes, CIA helped handle the logistics for both the memorial and the joint fundraiser that followed, raising over $200,000 for community restoration projects in Nipsey's honor. For those who saw Big U up close in those weeks, the grief was real. They described a man shattered, fighting tears but still trying to lead his people. That's why when the accusations began months later, suggesting he had anything to do with Nipsey's death, it felt cruel beyond words. In July 2020, a viral X thread accused Big U of vouching for Holder, claiming he cleared Eric Holder to move around Crenshaw. That post racked up 50,000 engagements in days, screenshots, memes, voiceovers, spreading lies faster than any truth could catch up. Big U decided to face it head on. In August 2020, he sat down with Vlad TV, looked straight into the camera and said plainly, "I built peace with Nip, didn't break it." But that's the thing about the internet. Denials never travel as far as accusations. Algorithms feed on conflict, not clarity. Every time Big U tried to clear the air, new clips or threads would twist his words into fresh bait for engagement. And while social media ate it up, his real-life work, the mentorship, the community programs, the anti-violence initiatives, started taking major hits. Big U later admitted in interviews that the rumors didn't just hurt his name, they destroyed his network. It wasn't about losing money, he said. It was about losing momentum. Years of peace building, gang intervention, and youth outreach were suddenly viewed through suspicion. Donors backed out, city partners pulled funding. People who once worked alongside him started keeping their distance, afraid of being associated with controversy. By 2023, social media data confirmed how far the narrative had flipped. Sentiment analysis on X showed that positive mentions linking Nipsey and Big U plummeted from 80% in 2018 to just 35% in 2023. Over 5,000 posts were pushing unverified or false stories, and every one of them chipped away at Big U's credibility. The truth didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the spectacle. And by the time March 2025 rolled around, that spectacle became reality when the feds came knocking. Big U was arrested and hit with 43 federal counts under the Rico Act, accused of running a mafia-style operation tied to extortion, fraud, and violence. Charges that painted him like a movie villain instead of the flawed community leader he'd been trying to become. To the world, it looked like the conspiracy had come full circle, but to those who actually knew him, it looked like the man who once brokered peace between enemies had become a prisoner of rumors, politics, and his own legacy. And now, with his son gone and his name in flames, Big U's story had turned into something bigger than any trial could define. A cautionary tale about what happens when the streets, the internet, and history collide. The federal case that brought Big U down was massive and dark. Prosecutors tied him directly to the Rollin' 60s Crips, accusing him of everything from extortion to human trafficking, bank fraud, and even murder for hire. According to the indictment, they claimed he used his unique music label as a front for moving money, people, and influence. The feds alleged that Big U extorted multiple Los Angeles businesses for protection fees, funneled cash through shell companies, and pocketed over $1.2 million in fraudulent COVID-19 relief loans. But the most explosive charge was the accusation that he orchestrated a 2021 murder in Las Vegas, the killing of a small-time rapper who had allegedly dissed him in a track. That claim turned the internet into a firestorm all over again. Though no physical evidence linking him to that hit has been presented publicly, Big U pleaded not guilty to every charge, insisting he's being targeted because of who he is, not what he's done. By September 2025, his own attorney withdrew from the case, leaving him to represent himself. A bold move for a man facing the possibility of life behind bars. His trial is now officially set for May 2026, and while the legal process moves forward, one truth remains undeniable. Big U's name has been dragged through the mud long before a single verdict is read, and that's the cruelest twist of it all. Against this backdrop, a father sitting in federal custody, his freedom stripped away, his reputation shattered by years of online accusations, Jabari Henley, his eldest son, is murdered in cold blood. The timing feels almost unreal, like something written by fate to test the limits of one man's pain. From a prison cell, Big U watched his world crumble in real time. The same internet that once celebrated his community work now mocked his loss, spinning it as karma instead of the heartbreak it was. It's a level of cruelty that shows just how far we've fallen as a culture, where grief is turned into gossip and tragedy becomes content for clicks. As of November 2nd, 2025, the LAPD investigation into Jabari's killing remains active. Detectives have reviewed 12 surveillance videos from businesses near the Fig and 69th smoke shop, but they're still waiting on the complete ballistics and toxicology results, expected by November 5th. 2 individuals from Inglewood were detained for questioning on November 1st, but were released after their alibis checked out. Forensics later discovered partial DNA on the sedan's door handle, a match pointing to a Hoover affiliate, suggesting that this wasn't a targeted revenge hit connected to Big U or Nipsey at all, but rather what internal LAPD memos are calling spillover retaliation. Basically, a stray thread from LA's never-ending cycle of street tension, not the cosmic justice the internet made it out to be. That's the bitter truth. The story everyone ran with online, the one about karma, revenge, and payback, wasn't grounded in evidence. It was built on assumptions, pain, and algorithms that feed off chaos. The real story is simpler, sadder, and far more human. A young father trying to build an honest life got caught in the crossfire of a system that never truly lets people escape their pasts. Meanwhile, the Henley family is trying to hold things together in private, with their Hyde Park home assets frozen under federal seizure orders tied to Big U's Rico case. The family's financial stability has collapsed. Still, they're pushing forward, planning Jabari's memorial service, tentatively scheduled for November 8th, away from cameras, away from speculation, away from the noise. For them, this isn't about headlines or conspiracies. It's about laying a son to rest while his father sits behind bars, surrounded by guards, lawyers, and ghosts of the past. It's about resilience in the face of public humiliation and relentless misinformation. And that's what makes this story so haunting. Because it isn't just about crime or celebrity or conspiracy. It's about how social media has completely rewired our relationship with grief, justice, and truth. How the line between information and entertainment has blurred so badly that people now treat someone's death like breaking news for engagement. When you strip away the noise, all that's left is the human cost. A father, broken and confined, mourning a son he can't bury. A family struggling to heal under the world's microscope. And a community once united by hope, now divided by rumor. No matter where you stand on Big U, Nipsey, or the streets of South Central, one thing's undeniable. The internet has turned pain into a performance, and nobody wins when tragedy becomes content. Rest in peace to Jabari, Baby Y Henley, a father, a brother, a son. And may this serve as a reminder that behind every viral story, there's a real family trying to survive the fallout. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay informed, and remember, compassion should never go out of style. If you found this story eye-opening, click one of the videos on your screen to dive deeper into the real stories shaping hip-hop today.